Kite Odesula Uniprte. Hello and welcome to part 10 of the Niwotx course. Today we will talk about adverbs. So, first we will talk about what actually is an adverb. So we'll look at some English examples, just so you have an understanding what we're actually talking about. Then we will see how to use adverbs in a sentence. And if you're just a beginner and you want to generally know how to use adverbs, then that's it for you. Because the rest of the video actually will be very specific information about certain adverbs, and if you're a beginner, feel free to just ignore it. So the rest of the video is more for people who want a deep dive. Because then we will talk about difference between sentence adverbials and manner adverbials. Don't worry, we will take a look at what that actually is first, of course. Then we will start looking at some specific adverbs. So we will look at how to describe time, manner and place. And then some more random adverbs that I personally find interesting and that might be helpful for you in the future. So, let's start. First, what is an adverb? So, adverbs basically describe how, when or where an action does happen. So, for example, here's some English examples. I run quickly. How do I run quickly? She sings very beautifully. Here we actually have two adverbs. First of all, beautifully. How does she sing? Beautifully. And then, how much beautifully does she sing? Very. So the beautifully here refers to the sing, and the very refers to the beautiful, because she sings very beautiful. Then, her voice is very beautiful. Here we again have very, but here we see that adverbs can refer to different things, because in the sentence before we had the very referring to the beautifully, so another adverb. And here, her voice is very beautiful. Here the very refers to an adjective, beautiful. Then we often come here, and next sentence with some time adverbials. Yesterday we went to the lake, but today we didn't have time. She ate here, so here as an adverbial of place. And lastly, strangely, she went away. What is interesting here is that the strangely basically is a comment of about the whole sentence. So it's a sentence adverbial. It, refers to the whole sentence instead of just a word. And yes, like I already said, they can describe manner, place, time or degree. So, how to use them in a sentence in Niwotx? Here are some English sentences, and here what they become in Niwotx. My ikran flies fast. Ikran weje twajon newin. She sings often. Pop im roll. Today I read a book. Pukit fitr well inan. I often go to the lake. Im ne ora oege. I already read that book. Zapukit li well olinan. The nantang runs very fast. Newin nit an to a nantang. So the things in bold are our adverbs here, and what you maybe can see already is that there is not really a rule on where to put them. They can be anywhere in the sentence, really, actually anywhere in the clause they belong to. So using them is extremely straightforward, which is why I filled this lesson with a lot of other random stuff, very specific stuff, just because if I just would to tell you this, then the lesson would basically be over now. One exception is that degree adverbs, so like for example, very fast, so how fast, very fast. These degree adverbs in Niwotx often go behind the thing they belong to. So we see in the last sentence, newin nit an, because nit an refers back to the newin. So, adverbs can be anywhere in the clause, though adverbs of degree or quantity often follow the thing they modify. That's not a very strict rule, but it's a tendency. Then we can actually create new adverbs ourselves with ne. Ne can be compared to the English le. So you see beautiful, an adjective, becomes beautifully, an adverb. Slow, an adjective, becomes slowly, an adverb in English. And we can actually do the same with ne. So we can put it on any adjective we want to create the adverb. Lor, beautiful, becomes nilor, beautifully. Slow, keong, becomes nikong, slowly. Here you see that the word changes a bit, so it's not nikkeong, but nikong. This is just something that happened over the time. There was a shortage of the word, so niteng is something you find in a dictionary. If you don't find such a shortened form in the dictionary, just put the ne in front of it and leave it like this. So this is only an exception you find in the dictionary then. This actually also works with pronouns in ordinal numbers. So for example, auve, first, becomes ne auve, firstly. Move, second, becomes ne move, secondly. And you can do this with all these type of numbers. And like I said, also with pronouns. So oe, I, can become neoe, like I do, or like me. Ioeng, we, becomes naiweng, like we do. So here again, it's not ne ioeng, it's naiweng. There's just a shortened form that evolved over time. But in general, you can put the ne on any pronoun and you get an adverb like, yeah, we, you, or I would do. Now maybe you're confused and say, but we also have na and pel, which mean like. So na oe or pel oe would be like I or like me. The difference here is that with ne, you focus on how someone behaves or how someone does something, while with na or pel, you speak more about how someone is perceived. But of course, there is some overlap in meaning. Lastly, one small note about this. Ne, as well as se and me actually, if together with I, then are pronounced as nai, sai, or mai. So for example, aifo is they, then ne aifo actually is pronounced as naifo. Important, this is not written. So it's still written as ne aifo, but you would say naifo when reading it. This also happens with se and me in. So for example, if you want to say se ein nantang and the nantangs, you would actually pronounce it as sai nantang. So now we come into the stuff that you don't really need to know if you're a beginner, but if you want to do a small deep dive, then you can stay and learn some more. First, let's talk about sentence adverbial versus manner adverbial. And for that, please compare these two sentences. Strangely, they speak Natvi. They speak Natvi strangely. What you here see is that in the first sentence, the strangely basically refers to the whole sentence. It's kind of a comment about the whole sentence, like, they speak Natvi, how strange. While in the second one, it's about how they speak. So how do they speak? They speak strangely. So here the strangely refers to the speak. In English we use the same word for two different things, and actually in Natvi in most cases we do the same, but there are some exceptions. So first of all, the first one would be a sentence adverbial, because the strangely here refers to the whole sentence. It's a comment about the whole sentence. The second one would be a manner adverbial, so it refers to how something is done, the manner of how someone speaks. You don't need to remember these terms, of course. I just put them here in case some people are interested in how to call these things. So this is how you do it in Natvi. Nihek for put in Natvi. Nihek means strangely. And nihek very strictly is only a sentence adverbial, so you can only use it to do this kind of comment thing about the whole clause. So you can only use this one in the first case. If you now want to have a manner adverbial, so to say how they speak, that they speak strangely, you can use ne fia'o ahek. This comes from fia'o, which is way or manner, then ne, which makes it into an adverb, so in a specific manner, and then we can describe this with ahek, so basically in a way that is strange. Now you are maybe confused because when you listen to my lessons about then you know that you can only describe nouns with them, but ne fia'o is not a noun, right? This is actually an exception. This is the only exception where you can use to describe something that's not a noun. Because actually what happens here is that you have the phrase fia'o ahek, so a noun fia'o described with ahek, that is weird. And then this whole phrase is turned into an adverb with ne. So actually, that way is kind of logical how it works. So like you see, for the two cases of strangely here, we need two different ways to say them in Natvi. But like I said, this is not always the case. Very often, adverbs in Latvi can be used as both a sentence adverbial and a manner adverbial. So niteng is kind of an exception where you need to use two different ways of saying it. So here again, what I just said, with niwotx, and then you can insert an adjective, or niwotx with a relative clause, you can make new manner adverbials, so things that describes how something is done. Now I just told you that most adverbs actually can be used in both ways, like you don't need the niwotx way, you can just use the ber adverb that already exists to do both, the sentence adverbial and the manner adverbial. But then why do we need this specific construction with niwotx? Actually, in some instances, it is kind of useful to have it, because look at the following thing. Popyt niwotx allow. He or she speaks in a clear way. Here it is very clear that we mean a manner adverbial, so we are talking about how he or she speaks. This is very clear. There's no doubt that it means this, because niwotx always creates a manner adverbial, so it always describes how someone does something. If we now just use nilau, which also exists, so this is an existing adverb, popyt nilau, then it can mean both, because we just learned some adverbs can be used in both ways. So this could mean both. It can either mean he or she speaks in a clear way. So how do they speak? Clearly. So it describes the way they speak. Or it can be a sentence adverbial. So basically a comment about the whole sentence. Yeah, clearly he or she speaks. So if we just use nilau, then it's not clear which of the two we mean. So if we mean the first one, if we are describing how someone speaks, it can sometimes be a bit clearer to use the first way, niwotx allow. If we mean the second one, then we always have to use nilau. So, after talking a lot about how to use different types of adverbs, now let's look at some specific adverbs. First, we should look at how to describe time, place, and manner. And here I have a small table for you. I know it's a lot of words and there will be more words coming, but I show you these words because they are made in a kind of regular way. So I think it maybe is easier if you know the pattern behind it, because even if you don't know them yet all, later it will be easier for you to recognize them. So we have this, which is fe, we have that, which is tsa, we have every, that is fra, and we have no, which is ke. You probably know all of these already, because we have already talked about them. And then we have some nouns here. We have time, which is grr. We have place, which is tseng or tsenge. And we have manner or way, which is fjao. Now we can actually combine these things to build new adverbs. So this time, so now actually is an exception. So here we have set, which is our own word. So let's ignore that one for now. But if I then want to say then, what I actually say is that time. So grr. If I want to say always, what I actually say is every time. So fra grr. And never becomes kau grr. I know it's not directly k grr, but there is the k from the no in there. So it's also kind of good to remember that. Then place, tseng or tsenge, becomes fitzeng or fitzenge, which is here, so literally this place. Tsatseng, there, so literally that place. Fratseng, everywhere, so literally every place. And kautseng, there we again have the cow, nowhere, so no place. And lastly, we have fifja from fjao, so this way. Someone does this way. Tsafja, so literally that way, so in that way. She did it in that way, she did it like that. And we have rafja, in every way. So we tried it in every way, or something like that. We have no combination with the k here. These are all words that are also in the dictionary. But there are also words we can freely build ourselves for time adverbs. Again, we have this, fe, but this time two new ones. You probably know these ones already if you watched my video about affixes. So let's only do a very quick recap. We have am, which is the last of something. We have I, which is the next of something. And they can be put on really any noun that has to do with time. So day is tr, so we have tr, this day, which is today. Tram, yesterday, so basically the last day. And drai, which is tomorrow, so the next day. The same for firewon, this morning. Rewonam, last morning, and re won nai next morning. Same for fe wasp e this month, wasp eam last month, and wasp ei next month. And lastly, last example here, fe sisit this year, sisitam last year, and sisitai next year. So let's look at some other random adverbs that I personally find interesting. And first it looks at instance adverbials and li. What the hell is an instance adverbial, you might ask? They are built in that way with alo, which is a noun meaning time, instance, or turn, plus a number. And what they do, they say how often something has been done. So for example, with aulo, melo, and elo, these, like you maybe can see, they're built from au, one, plus alo, so aulo, one time. Melo comes from mune plus alo, so 2 times, and elo is from 3 times, from a. So yeah, someone did something 1, 2, or 3 times. And we can do that actually freely with any number we want. We just have to then use it like an adjective. So tsinga alo or alo a tsing is 4 times. And this is how, yeah, you can say how often something has been done. Even though alo, of course, actually is a noun, these constructions then work like adverbs, so you can just put them randomly in the sentence. You don't need case endings or anything. You can just use them like you would use an adverb. So yes, smash them in the sentence, everything is fine. Then let's look at li. You might ask why? What is so interesting about li? It's such a small word and it just means already. And yeah, kind of, but actually li has a lot of secondary meanings, which are very good to know, I think, because they are not used as often as they should be used, because I have the feeling many people often forget about them, like I do too actually. So let's look at them. The first 2 sentences is like you already know li. So li yolom oe, I already ate, and ge li ge yolom oe, I didn't eat yet. So already and not yet, this is how people usually use li. But there are some more things you can do with this. So look at the following one. Nga mildesrak, do you agree? And in such case, you can use li as an answer. So li, sle. And if you use li as an answer to a yes or no question, then it means something like, well, yes, I guess. So a very hesitant yes. So in this case, li, sle, then yeah, I guess so, but. So yeah, like I said, it's basically a very hesitant yes. And you can also use the negative form of li here. So nga mildesrak, ge li. So then it means something like not really. And we can also use li in combination with a comment. So for example, li ke, get going, go already. So then it implies a very strong urgency. You can use this with any comment. So for example, I can say something like, li yom, eat already, now finally eat, something like this. If we're, for example, in a hurry and I'm just waiting for you to finally eat your stupid breakfast. Yeah, li yom. So yeah, use this together with comments if you want to imply very strong urgency. And we can also use it together with the particle ko. Ko means something like let's do something, for example, magdo ko from the movie, let's write. Or also something like nume ko, let's learn. And if you use it together with li, liko, then it means something like, yeah, well, let's get to it then, or let's get on it. So also very useful phrase to know. So you see, li is a very small word, but you can use it in a lot of different situations, and it's actually kind of useful. Then we have Nisilpey and nirangal. I want to talk about them because they require the if infix, so don't forget about that. Nisilpey means hopefully, and requires if infix as a sentence adverbial. So if you remember, sentence adverbial was the thing that is basically a comment about the whole clause and refers to the whole clause. And Nisilpey is mostly used in that way. So look at the sentences. Poel Nisilpey divok fitsengit. Hopefully she's here. So the hopefully is a comment about the whole thing that she's here. Because I hope she's here, basically. We can also use it in the past, then we need to use the inf or also the ilf infix, so the combined infix with if and ol. Poe Nisilpey simva u, hopefully she came, so in the past. And in the future, Poe Nisilpey sieva'u. Hopefully she will come. Don't worry about the infixes too much, we will look at them in the next few lessons. But just a heads up, you really need if infix in these sentences. And if the sentence is in the past or in the future, then you actually also need to combine the infixes here, because you need if and the tense or the aspect. But if you use it as a manner adverbial, like in the last sentence, you actually don't need the if infix. So manner adverbial here, because in what way does something happen? So here, Poe Nisilpey bolaum. She asked hopefully, so she asked in a hopefully way. She was hopeful while she asked. Here we don't have a sentence adverb but a manner adverbial, and we don't need the if infix. Next to nirangal. Nirangal always needs a form of if actually. And it basically, it's not really possible to translate it as an adverb in English. It's more like I wish something, so it's about unreal things, so things that did not happen or will not happen. For example, Poe nirangal dirvok fetsengit. I wish she were here, like she were here right now, but actually she isn't. Here is the irv, which is the if infix together with er. We will, like I said, talk about this in the next few lessons. Then, if we want to have this in the past, Poe nirangal simva'u. I wish she would have come, but she didn't, so this thing never happened. Poe nirangal sieva'u. I wish she were coming, but she will actually not be coming. I already know this. So you see nirangal for stuff that doesn't happen, and nisilpey to hope for things that could happen. And last topic today, Niwotx and kop versus niteng. First let's look at Niwotx. Niwotx means something like completely. And you can use this to build a collective with plurals. So for example, I nantang niwotx yolom. All nantangs ate. Of course, we could also use frei nantang yolom here, so all nantangs ate. That means basically the same. But I think Niwotx is a nice other way to also do this, in case you don't want to use frei always. And it's nice to have different ways to say the same thing in the language. And actually, you can also use this then to build both. So, me fo niwotx yolom. Literally, the two of them completely ate. So, they both ate. And this is how you say both in Natvi. And lastly, kop and niteng, they both translate to also or to. So let's look at the difference very quickly. Kop means something like also in addition, so additionally further. As an example, well boleng kop boru tsaud. I also, so in addition, told him that. Now compare it to niteng. Also similarly, likewise so in the same way. Well boleng niteng portat. I told him that too. So like someone else told him that, but I told him that too in the same way. And with that, we are actually done. Like always, if you have any questions, you can ask in the comments here or contact me on Discord. Hi, yellow, I'm a frappo.